Imagine a future where cutting-edge tech really merges with something as deeply personal as our health. It's a vision that promises, well, incredible breakthroughs, right? But it also makes you ask, can machines truly help us heal, make medicine better? Or do they bring their own set of, complications and challenges? Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really close look at a comprehensive paper. It's titled AI in Healthcare: The Promise and Perils by Robert Sparrow and Joshua Hatherley. Our mission here is to basically unpack their insights. What does artificial intelligence actually offer medicine? And critically, what are the risks we really need to be aware of? We're going to pull out the key nuggets of knowledge from this source to help you get up to speed quickly on this really important topic. So let's start at the beginning. When we talk about AI in this context, what are we actually referring to and how did we get here? Because AI isn't exactly brand new, is it?
No, that's a great place to start, yeah. For this discussion, AI basically means machines that can act rationally or, intelligently. And you're right, it's not new. AI research goes way back, mid-1950s, lots of early buzz. But then in the 70s and 80s, things cooled off significantly. That was the famous AI winter funding, excitement, it all just dried up. Fast forward to now, though, and we are definitely in an AI spring.
Right.
And this resurgence, it's mostly driven by big advances in machine learning, and especially a powerful part of that called deep learning.
So what sparked this spring? Was it just like one big thing or more a mix of factors?
Oh, it's definitely a combination. The spring is really blooming thanks to this incredible jump in computing power and, crucially, the explosion of big data that came with the internet age. Deep learning, for instance, uses these really complex, multi-layered neural networks, kind of inspired by the human brain, and that allows for incredibly accurate predictions, classifications, that sort of thing. And specifically for medicine, natural language processing, NLP, the ability of machines to understand text and speech, that's proving really relevant.
Okay, that makes sense. So that brings us to a key question then. Why medicine? Why does this field seem so, I don't know, perfectly suited for AI right now? What makes it so ripe for this kind of disruption?
Yeah, excellent question. The paper points to several key drivers here. First and foremost, it's just the sheer amount of data, the data deluge. AI systems thrive on these huge, varied data sets. And modern healthcare's digitization has generated just enormous amounts of this stuff.
Like what specifically?
Well, you've got electronic health records, obviously,
Yeah.
but also data from wearables like Fitbits, online patient forms, even things like credit card transactions can sometimes contain health insights AI can pick up on.
Wow. Okay.
And beyond the data, there are big financial incentives. Let's be honest, people care deeply about their health. They're willing to spend on it. So tech companies, big and small, are investing heavily. And of course, you also have that altruistic drive. There are many genuinely dedicated people trying to improve health outcomes using AI.
And governments too, right? They seem to have pinned big hopes on AI to maybe control healthcare costs, thinking it could find better treatments or new drugs. What does the paper say about that?
Yes. Well, here's a really interesting counterpoint from the paper. Kind of defies common wisdom. We usually expect tech to cut costs, right?
Yeah, generally.
But Sparrow and Hatherley point out this persistent trend. Historically, medical advances have actually increased overall spending.
Really? How so?
It's a fundamental economic reality we have to grapple with. The reason is basically increased life expectancy, which is great, obviously. A result of medical progress means older patients live longer. And older patients often have more complex and therefore, well, more expensive medical needs. So it complicates that simple AI saves money narrative.
Okay, so that sets the stage really well. Now let's get into the specifics. Where is AI actually delivering? Let's talk about the promise. Starting with research seems like a huge area.
Absolutely. AI's core strength here is spotting these really intricate patterns in massive data sets, patterns humans would just completely miss. So its potential as a research tool is extraordinary. Think genomics. Complex algorithms are vital for genetic sequencing for these genome-wide association studies. Or drug discovery. AI is being used to predict which molecules might actually work. DeepMind's AlphaFold, that's a prime example. Modeling proteins from genetic sequences. It's amazing stuff.
Wow.
And AI is also used to mine electronic health records, look for new phenotypes, observable traits of a disease or biomarkers, measurable indicators of illness. It can even leverage novel data sources like from your mobile phone or online activity for public health insights.
And it feels like AI adoption and research is moving faster than in the clinic. Probably less regulation, right? Does the paper offer any words of caution here?
It does, yeah. And that's a really key takeaway. The paper stresses that AI isn't magic. its findings.
Mm-hmm.
They're only as good as the data it's trained on. That's critical.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And researchers need to remember AI is fundamentally correlation-based. Figuring out actual causal links versus just correlations, that's still vital for real breakthroughs. Plus, a lot of the exciting claims might be based on preprints, not fully peer-reviewed work yet.
Hmm.
And, ethical issues around data consent and research, they're not always handled as carefully as they should be.
Okay. So moving from research to diagnosis, this seems to be where a lot of the public excitement is focused. We keep hearing about AI outperforming doctors in specific tasks.
hmm
What's the real story there?
Yeah, the buzz around diagnostics is definitely huge,
Mhm.
especially in medical imaging. Deep learning has shown really significant potential diagnosing things like diabetic retinopathy, certain skin cancers, breast cancer.
Yeah.
Sometimes in specific narrow tasks, it actually does outperform human experts. And this is already making professions like dermatology, radiology, pathology think about, how their roles might need to change to work with these AI systems.
So it's not just imaging.
No, not entirely. There are attempts to apply AI to clinical data from ECGs, ICU monitoring too. And then there was IBM's Watson, remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. The Jeopardy champion.
That's the one. Well, they had an ambitious project using machine learning and NLP to recommend treatments. The initial reception was, well, very enthusiastic. Later commentary has been more mixed, but it definitely showed the scale of ambition. There's even talk now about AI finally delivering on personalized medicine, analyzing your whole genome, lifestyle factors, everything.
So that's the promise, the potential. But what's the actual clinical reality today? Are we seeing this everywhere, or is there still a gap between the hype and what's actually being used?
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. The paper makes it clear that while enthusiasm is high, a lot of these promising results, they still lack proper clinical validation, often because of methodological limits in the studies themselves. It's one thing for an AI to ace a test on a perfectly curated dataset. It's quite another for it to perform reliably in the messy, complex real world of actual medical diagnoses. So, yeah, more excitement than widespread application, for now at least.
Got it. Okay, AI also holds a lot of promise in an area that's maybe less glamorous but still critical. Medical administration. We're talking efficiency gains here, right?
Exactly. I mean, computers and expert systems already handle a lot of complex stuff like scheduling, purchasing, billing. AI is said to automate even more of these business processes, which should significantly boost efficiency. We can probably expect AI systems handling patient billing, managing staff rosters, inventory, maybe even monitoring employee performance, scheduling surgeries.
Right.
And as those natural language interfaces get better, your first contact for making an appointment or asking a question might very well be an AI.
That definitely sounds efficient. But I don't know, it also sounds like it could feel a bit impersonal, maybe even disempowering for patients. Did the paper touch on other impacts on this side of healthcare?
That's a key concern, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it extends to the insurance industry, too. Insurers rely on identifying and managing risk better than their clients, right? AI lets them leverage massive data sets to get a much sharper picture of risk profiles.
Which could mean lower premiums for some.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
For a wider market even. And this is big, but it also carries the risk that some people, especially those with high medical needs, might find insurance becomes unaffordable. If AI gets too good at segmenting risk pools, it could leave high-risk individuals stuck in these small, incredibly expensive groups.
And it goes further, doesn't it? Affecting managed care.
Yes. With more data on outcomes and treatment success rates, managed care organizations get better at estimating the likely benefits and costs of specific treatments. So AIs could effectively become gatekeepers, deciding who gets what care, when, for how long. The paper notes there's already evidence this is starting to happen.
So efficiency on one side, but potential for these kind of impersonal, maybe alienating interactions on the other. And yet, some people argue AI could actually rehumanize medicine. Eric Topol, for instance, talks about AI unshackling clinicians from electronic health records. The hope being, I guess, that automating data tasks frees up doctors to focus more on the patient as a person. What does the paper say about that vision? Is it realistic?
Well, it's certainly a commendable ambition,
Mm-hmm.
but the paper raises some pretty important skepticism about how realistic it actually is. Given how much AI relies on vast data sets, it's entirely possible that AI advances might actually increase the demands on doctors interacting with IT systems, not reduce them.
Oh, so.
Because physicians would still need to monitor the AI's performance, track patient outcomes, which itself generates more data than needs inputting or reviewing. To truly cut the burden, AI systems would need to gather data almost invisibly, without needing much human input or fiddling. And that's a really significant technical challenge.
I can see that. Yeah. Even with fancy natural language processing, taking notes during appointments, or these virtual clinical assistants flagging things, the doctor still has to review it all, right? For liability reasons, if nothing else. And what if the AI just flags too much information? It might actually create more data for them to sift through, not less.
Exactly. And then you layer on the economic realities. Hospitals, healthcare systems, they face almost infinite demand for care. There's absolutely no guarantee they'll use any efficiencies gained from AI to give doctors more time per patient. They might just push more patients through the system.
Because patient throughput is easier to measure than care.
Precisely. Patient care, that human connection, it's subtle, hard to quantify. But the number of patients seen, procedures done, that's easily measured. So institutions might be incentivized to prioritize throughput.
Okay, so rehumanizing medicine, while a fantastic goal, isn't an automatic result of AI. It sounds like it would need really clever AI design and a conscious effort by the medical profession to push back against those economic pressures.
Right, we've explored the upside, the promise. But the paper's title includes perils. Let's dig into that shadow side now. What are the crucial risks we need to be aware of? Privacy seems like the obvious starting point.
Oh, absolutely. It's an intensified threat in the digital age, no question. AI basically drives the collection of even more data, including non-healthcare data, remember, like online activity, wearables, and it also increases the kinds of insights you can extract from that data. The sheer volume needed for AI training creates this huge incentive to just hoover up everything available.
And the idea that we can just de-identify data to protect privacy, that sounds like a technical fix that might not really hold up, does it? What did the authors say about that? Yeah, that's a critical point the paper makes. Two main problems, really. First, you can often deduce sensitive health info from seemingly unrelated non-medical data. The classic, slightly scary example is Target figuring out a teenage girl was pregnant from her purchase history of things like unscented lotion and cotton balls.
Right. I remember that story.
It's a powerful warning. Second, even if data is systematically de-identified, it can also be re-identified surprisingly easily once you have enough different data points about someone. So what this likely means is there's an inherent trade-off here, privacy versus the potential healthcare benefits of AI. And while some argue, we have a duty to share data for a learning healthcare system, the paper rightly points out that the benefits might not be equally shared. Power centralization, algorithmic bias, these could mean not everyone benefits equally, challenging that idea of universal good.
And closely related to privacy, but maybe distinct, is the danger of increased surveillance. This isn't just accidental data leaks, it's more deliberate scrutiny of populations. How does AI fuel that?
Yeah, it's a distinct concern. AI facilitates surveillance in a few key ways. It allows for gathering more and new kinds of data, integrating sensor data, social media feeds, location data, creating richer, more detailed insights. AI also makes it much, much easier to spot subtle patterns across huge databases, patterns humans would miss, and crucially, it can do all this automatically, 24/7, flagging things in real time without direct human oversight.
Which fundamentally changes things.
It really does. It changes the relationship between organizations and individuals. It shifts toward this watcher-watch dynamic where everyone becomes a potential source of risk to be managed, and it centralizes power significantly.
Okay, moving on. Then there's the huge issue of bias. We've seen examples outside medicine where AI trained on bad data gives discriminatory results. What's the core problem?
The core problem is simple but profound. AI systems are only as good as the data they learn from. If that data reflects existing societal biases, the AI will learn and often amplify those biases. We've seen this with facial recognition having trouble with darker skin tones, or recruitment tools showing high-paying jobs primarily to men.
Right.
And what's really insidious is how this bias can become self-reinforcing. Think about predictive policing. If an AI directs police to certain neighborhoods based on historical arrest data, which might already be biased, then more arrests happen there, which feeds back into the AI as confirmation, leading to even more policing in those same areas. It creates a loop.
And the implications for healthcare are, well, pretty alarming given how sensitive this all is.
They really are. Medical data itself isn't neutral. Factors like sex, race, class, they already influence who seeks care, how they're diagnosed, how they're treated. So there's a very real danger that AI could actually deepen existing health inequities. A stark example they mention is AI for skin cancer diagnosis being trained almost exclusively on images of fair skin.
So it just doesn't work as well for people with darker skin.
Potentially, yes. Its benefits might largely accrue to fair-skinned populations, possibly even leading to harm or misdiagnoses for others.
And the paper mentions a specific type called aggregation bias, where a kind of one-size-fits-all model isn't great for diverse groups. Can you unpack that?
Yeah, so even if your data set has good representation across different groups, say different ethnicities,
Yeah.
applying a single monolithic AI model might not serve the interests of each subgroup optimally. They give the example of clinical tools for diabetes management. There can be statistically relevant differences in how diabetes manifests or responds to treatment across ethnicities. A single model might smooth over those differences, leading to suboptimal recommendations for some groups.
I see.
What really struck me about the paper's discussion on bias is that they frame it not just as a technical glitch, like something engineers can just patch. They argue it's a deeper methodological and ethical challenge. It forces us into ongoing, maybe uncomfortable conversations about how we choose data, what correlations mean, and whose values are embedded in the system. It's way beyond just tweaking code.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Okay, another big worry, especially with deep learning, is explainability, the black box problem. The most accurate AIs are often the ones where we least understand why they made a decision.
Exactly. It's a genuine concern. These deep neural networks have so many layers, so many connections, making tiny adjustments during training. The final reasoning pathway is often just opaque. We get the output, but not a clear why. Now, to be fair, medicine has always dealt with some unexplained mechanisms. Think aspirin used for over a century before we fully grasped how it worked. Or lithium for bipolar disorder, still not entirely sure why it's effective.
Okay, fair point. So if medicine already uses some black boxes, why is explainability such a big deal for AI specifically?
Because medicine isn't just about finding the right answer. It's fundamentally about relationships and decisions involving people. Explanation and understanding are becoming increasingly central to patient autonomy, to shared decision-making.
Right. Patients want to know why.
Exactly. They want answers about their diagnosis, their treatment plan. The opacity of AI can deprive them of that. It also makes it really hard to spot if the AI made some kind of implicit value judgment that doesn't align with the patient's own values. And from a procedural justice perspective, the idea that the process of making a decision needs to be fair, like Kant argued, if people are treated differently based on a machine's hidden logic, we need understandable reasons. Black boxes can't provide those clear reasons.
Which leads us straight into trust, doesn't it? Trust is absolutely fundamental in healthcare. If doctors can't explain why the AI suggested something, how can patients trust the recommendation?
That's a core issue, yeah. That difficulty in explaining AI's reasoning can definitely undermine patient trust, trust in the clinician, trust in the whole system. There's even this possibility that trust might shift away from human doctors towards the AI systems themselves, which is a weird thought. And clinicians are caught in the middle, right? They have to mediate between the patient and the AI,
Yeah.
and knowing when to trust the AI versus their own judgment is crucial for safety.
And the paper points out two dangerous extremes for clinicians interacting with AI, over-trusting it and under-trusting it. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, and both can have really disastrous consequences. Automation bias, that's overtrust, happens when people rely too heavily on systems, especially ones they've seen be accurate most of the time. The Therac 25 radiation therapy machine disaster is a terrible historical example in medicine. Operators ignored clear signs something was wrong because they trusted the machine's readouts over clinical reality, leading to fatal radiation overdoses.
Right.
Then on the other side, undertrust can lead to alert fatigue. Hospital staff get bombarded with so many computerized warnings and alerts, many of which seem irrelevant, that they start ignoring them. There was a case mentioned where a patient got a massive 37-fold overdose of an antibiotic because multiple warnings were just dismissed. Both extremes, overtrust and undertrust, can lead to really severe patient harm.
Which then connects pretty naturally to the concern about de-skilling. If AI starts handling core tasks like diagnosis or prescribing, what happens to the skills of doctors, both current ones and future generations?
It's a critical pragmatic concern. The paper breaks down de-skilling into 3 levels. 1, individual doctors losing skills through lack of practice. 2, new doctors never properly learning those skills in the first place because the AI does it. 3, the entire profession losing collective competence in areas that become automated.
And the big question is,
What happens if the technology fails? Power cut, system crash, cyber attack, whatever. Will doctors still have the fundamental skills to diagnose and treat people if those skills have atrophied or were never fully developed? The answer really depends on, how likely is failure? How long would it last? How urgent is the procedure AI usually handles? And what fallback options even exist if the human skills are gone?
But beyond just the practical what if it breaks scenario, there's a deeper philosophical angle here too, isn't there? About the value of exercising certain skills.
Yes, that's a profound point the paper raises. It asks, is the value of medicine solely about achieving health outcomes? Or are there aspects of the practice itself, things like demonstrating care or exercising practical wisdom, judgment, that are inherently valuable for human flourishing? If an AI always makes the complex decision for you, have you really been made better off, even if the outcome is technically good? It pushes us to see medicine as potentially more than just a means to an end.
And this worry about de-skilling feels particularly urgent when you think about the potential for fragility in the system. If everyone starts relying on the same AI system, well, that creates a massive single point of failure.
Exactly. You could end up with a situation where, say, one single AI system is responsible for virtually all skin cancer detection nationally, or reading all chest x-rays.
And there might even be pressure towards that kind of monopoly.
Yeah, interestingly, there's even an ethical argument sometimes made for it. The duty of non-maleficence to do no harm. If one AI is proven demonstrably better than all others, institutions might feel ethically obligated to use only the best one to avoid harming patients with inferior tools. Plus, you have the usual market forces, marketing, competitive advantage. The system with the most users gets the most data, which helps it get better, creating a feedback loop towards dominance.
So if that single dominant AI system then malfunctions or has a flaw, the consequences could be just catastrophic.
Precisely. An incompetent human doctor might harm dozens, maybe hundreds, over a career. But a single flawed AI used everywhere could affect hundreds of thousands, potentially millions, almost instantly. And these risks are made much worse by the de-skilling and automation bias we just talked about. Doctors might be less likely to spot subtle errors or question the AI's output until it's too late.
Can't we just have backup systems?
Well, trying to mitigate this by having multiple redundant AI systems is actually quite difficult. It's expensive, complex to integrate, and raises its own ethical questions about opportunity costs. Could that money be better spent elsewhere?
That scenario also really shines a light on the immense power that the corporations designing and controlling these dominant AI systems would have.
Oh, absolutely. They could effectively hold entire healthcare systems and patients to ransom over pricing, updates, future development. It's huge leverage. And beyond the corporate power, AI also shifts power internally. We mentioned surveillance that empowers governments and institutions over individuals. And if physicians are de-skilled to some extent, their traditional social standing and bargaining power could decrease, while the influence of, say, computer scientists and IT departments within healthcare grows significantly. These power shifts might seem abstract, but they're likely to be among the most profound long-term impacts.
Which brings us to the really thorny question of responsibility. When an AI is involved in a medical error, who's actually to blame? The company, the doctor, the hospital, the AI itself.
Yeah, people often talk about a responsibility gap with AI, suggesting it's hard to pin down blame. But the paper actually pushes back against that idea quite strongly. It argues that uncertainty is already inherent in medicine. Think about unpredictable patient reactions to drugs. Doctors always have to make decisions based on the best available information, accepting some level of uncertainty.
Okay.
So the fact that an AI introduces another layer of uncertainty doesn't automatically create a gap. We can still assess whether a doctor's decision to rely on the AI in a particular instance was reasonable, given the circumstances, the AI's known limitations, etc.
So responsibility can still be allocated in principle.
Yes, the paper argues it can. The AI designer or manufacturer bears responsibility for the tools designed, its performance, its known failure modes. Responsibility for the use of the AI typically falls jointly on the physician using it and the healthcare institution that implemented it. And ultimately, responsibility for acting on the AI's output still rests with the treating physician who makes the final clinical decision. Interestingly, the paper even suggests that down the line, adopting AI might become morally obligatory for doctors if and when it consistently leads to significantly better patient outcomes than human effort alone could achieve.
Okay, let's shift slightly. Let's talk about how technology, AI included, isn't just a neutral tool. It kind of frames problems, shapes how we think about them, maybe even changes our goals.
That's a really key insight from the philosophy of technology, yeah. Technology is never truly neutral. The paper uses that classic analogy. To a person with a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
Well, to a healthcare institution with an AI, everything may look like data. The implication is that AI inherently frames health primarily as an information problem to be solved through data analysis. You could argue that computers and electronic health records already started this shift, pulling physicians' attention away from the patient's physical presence towards the data on the screen. AI risks accelerating that, abstracting further from the individual patient to patterns in data in the cloud. Patients risk becoming primarily data points.
So the practice of medicine potentially shifts from knowing how, like the skill of a physical exam, the surgeon's touch, towards knowing that interpreting data outputs, with the crucial skills maybe migrating towards data scientists rather than clinicians.
That's the concern, precisely. And this leads us to what might be the most fundamental peril discussed, the impact on care. Human contact, attention, empathy. These aren't just nice-to-haves. They often have real therapeutic value. They're central to medicine as a fundamentally caring profession.
But machines, well, they can't actually care in a human sense. So the worry is the more roles AI takes over, the fewer opportunities there might be for that human element of care.
That's exactly the argument. Medical practice is already incredibly data-driven, sometimes feeling like it comes at the expense of the patient-physician relationship. The actual physical acts of care, touch, comfort, presence are increasingly seen as the domain of nurses and other allied health professionals. The specific concern raised is that AI might be better suited initially to replace the more data-centric aspects of a doctor's role before it can replicate the hands-on physical care provided by, say, a nurse. And if that happens, it could negatively impact doctors' job satisfaction. It might even affect patients' motivation to follow medical advice if they feel their doctor doesn't really connect with them or truly care about them as a person.
So it's not necessarily this stark choice between like cold, efficient machines that cure people versus warm, fuzzy human medicine with shapy outcomes. The paper seems to suggest care itself makes medicine more effective.
That's a crucial takeaway. Care isn't just fluff. It can be integral to healing. Given the strong pressures to adopt AI for its efficiencies, the paper argues there's a real need to actively defend the value of care within medicine. We need to make sure patients aren't implicitly forced into a false choice between human connection and machine efficiency.
Right. And finally, the paper touches on how AI might impact our ability to reason about values more generally. The concern being that AI is so good at solving the how-to-do problems that maybe doctors and patients spend less time wrestling with the really important what should we do questions.
That's a profound risk, yes. AI is an incredibly powerful instrument for achieving defined goals. But so much of medicine, especially at the beginning and end of life or when dealing with chronic illness, requires deep thought about fundamental ends, about values, questions about human flourishing, quality of life, dignity, balancing autonomy with best interests, agonizing decisions like when to withdraw life support. These are not primarily technical or data problems. Machines can't really reason about these deeply human ethical values. They can't, as the paper puts it, stand behind their claims morally.
So this limitation, maybe it offers a sliver of comfort for those worried about AI completely replacing doctors.
In a way, yes. It strongly suggests that physicians will continue to have a vital, perhaps even more important role in helping patients navigate their own values and understand the implications for their medical choices. Even as routine diagnostic or administrative tasks get automated, that human role of counselor, guide, and ethical deliberator remains essential. The challenge, of course, is ensuring that the sheer efficiency and power of AI doesn't inadvertently crowd out the time and space needed for that crucial human deliberation.
Wow, what a deep dive that was. So, to try to sum up, we've seen that artificial intelligence offers truly tremendous promise for patients, for doctors, for healthcare systems as a whole. From boosting medical research, enabling more accurate diagnoses potentially, to making administration way more efficient.
But yeah, we've also had to stare squarely at the significant perils. That intensified threat to privacy, the potential for really pervasive surveillance, the serious danger of biased algorithms making health inequities even worse, that whole black box problem of explainability, and the really complex challenges around trust. And we explored the risks of de-skilling, the fragility that comes from potential single points of failure, the inevitable shifts in power dynamics within healthcare, and those enduring questions about responsibility.
And crucially, we grappled with how AI might subtly reframe medicine itself, maybe impacting the core human element of care and potentially crowding out that vital deliberation about our deepest values. Understanding all this, as the paper makes clear, it really demands input from everyone: doctors, engineers, data scientists, ethicists, patients, policymakers. It's truly interdisciplinary.
Absolutely. So as AI becomes even more deeply woven into the fabric of healthcare, maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. How can we as individuals, as a society, make sure that the very real, quantifiable benefits of this powerful technology don't accidentally diminish the unquantifiable but absolutely essential human side of medicine? What steps can we all take to really champion the values of care, of human connection, and thoughtful deliberation in this rapidly evolving landscape?